Hi everyone, welcome to a new video with Code with Sally. If you watched the previous videos, you know that this session is running every Thursday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. The purpose of the sessions is to help anyone trying to learn Apex and Salesforce development to get started. So we are starting slow and we'll keep adding to what we are learning. So if this is your first time to check the channel and the videos, go back and watch the beginning of the playlist so you can understand what we discussed first before jumping into this session. And the next session will be recorded live, so you will watch what happened during the session and how you can benefit if you attend live to ask your questions and have discussion. It's always more fun to attend and listen and ask questions than just watching. And we'll keep adding to the channel all the recordings moving forward. So if you have something and you cannot attend in one day, feel free to watch the video as well. So last time we started talking about the variables in Salesforce and what are the data type and their usage. Just a quick recap if you're jumping to this video and you didn't watch the previous ones. So Salesforce variables is very essential. It's very important. It's like a placeholder where you store a specific value to be used again and again in your code. And one major like thing you have to follow is to first choose the data type you'll be working with based on what you want to store. Like I am trying to store a numeric value like my age or my salary, then I will use one of the numeric data types that we covered last time. So you'll use like integer or log if it's whole number, or you would use a decimal point a variable. It's double or decimal. Also, if you didn't check it out, but like you go to Code with Sally, that's my blog, you can navigate to Salesforce Basics, and you will find here a good article about the data types, the primitive data types in Salesforce. Check it out because it covers the explanation in a written way, and it has a lot of code that you can copy and try to run it so you can play with it and understand more. And last time as well, we spoke about the text data type where you can store words, phrases, including numbers, but in text format, and the text is usually between single quotes. And we start at that point. Today, our target is to finish the Boolean, the date types, and the ID type as well. So we can finish all the data types, the primitive data types in Salesforce. So let's jump in with the Boolean. So the Boolean data type is very important, is one of like the very common variables you'll be using. You'll use it in your code, and you'll use it when we go to the next topic, which is the conditional statements. We use a lot of Boolean there. And the Boolean this is a very special data type. Like with numbers, you can have 1, 2, 300, 1,000 decimal points. Like it has a lot of options. Whatever you want to store in a number, you can. But like with the Boolean, it only allows two values, either true or false. And as I said, like they are very commonly used in programming to make the decision. And that's what we will cover when we go to the this conditional statements. So it's just good to know for now that it will be either a true or a false. Let's try a couple of examples to see how would it be evaluated to true or false, or how we can have a true and false variable. So I hope everyone has their developer org ready for them to try the code that we'll be covering today. If not, you can open a playground from your Trailhead. It's up to you. Also, just a reminder, try to install your Visual Studio Code soon, because at some point we'll switch to that. But today we'll be using the developer console. So everyone with an org would be able to follow. To open the developer console after you open your org, you open here and then choose developer console. So from the gear that will be next to your profile here, and you click on developer console. When you open the developer console, you go to debug and open execute anonymous. So that's all the code we covered in last session. I will clear it out. Now we want to work with Boolean data type. So first of all, the basic we covered is whenever you work with variables and you want to declare a variable, which means an empty container, no initial values, or do an initialization where a container will have a default value, we do define the data type. So it's a Boolean, and we should give it a name that is meaningful. It's up to you what name you should give to your variables. It's always a good idea to give it a meaningful name on how it's used. So let's say here I want to have a variable Boolean to evaluate if 3 is greater than 2. Okay, so let's give it a name. What is 3 greater? And here, because I just here, if I do like that, the semicolon, that means I declare that it's empty, it doesn't have a value. But sometimes we do an initialization, so by default, I will give it false. And let's print it and see what it will show. Here, if I try to give it, let's try first a value, and let me print here for you the variable that we want to see its value. If I print it here and do the debug only, it will show that the value is false. It's the same value that I initialized the variable with. Another thing I just want to show you here, we agreed before that the data type, when you specify a data type for a variable here, in Salesforce, it's very important to stick to it. Like you cannot have a Boolean and store a text. But sometimes we do mistakes. So let's see here, test string as a string. I am trying to put it in a Boolean. If I try to execute it now, sorry, it will give me here that we have an error. And it's a good idea to know how to read your error messages that you get, because it helps you figuring out what's the problem. And especially with long code or different people working on the same code. So sometimes you're not familiar with every piece you wrote or someone else wrote. So it's good to be able to read where's the issue. So here it says that the error is at line 2, and it says like it's illegal assignment from string to Boolean. And that's again because we cannot put in a sugar container salt. It causes problems when we are cooking. So same idea here. You cannot put in a Boolean a string. So let's keep it with a false for now. And let's try to see how we will evaluate it to true or false if 3 is greater than 2 or not. So we'll use the variable. Use the variable means like I can use the value or change that value updated. Here I use the value of the variable and print it. Now here I'm updating it. And what I would do here is I will open and close a bracket. That's not necessary, but for me it's just cleaner to have always a close and open, an open and close parentheses to keep my code like well structured. It's my preference. So let's say I do here 3 greater than 2. So that means here the code when is running, this line of code will check is 3 greater than 2, and then it will update the value. If it's true, it will set is 3 greater with true. If it's false, if this evaluates to false, it will be the value here will be false. So let's see. Let's print the value now. Updated value. And I print again is 3 greater? And let's execute. When I execute, I choose that I want to see my debug statements. So that's the default value that we had. It's false. Then here, this is the updated value. It became true. So that means my condition here got evaluated and it gave me true. Let's say here I wanted to say 3, is 3 equal to, like number 3 equal to, and in Apex, when we want to check in a condition equality, we do an equal, and we'll learn more about that when we talk about the conditional statements. But here, like mathematically, are they equal? No. So the value here, you should expect it to be false. So let's go here. And the value now became false. So that's like an example comparing two variables, two integer values, and we are getting true or false based on the condition or the expression we have here. Another example, let's say I will have my first name and your first name is string. So I would say string instructor is Sally. And I ask one person in the student, and it tells me like, she tells me her name is Hannah. Okay, so we have the instructor Sally and the student is Hannah. I can now check if they are equal or not. So I want to see here is same name, sorry. And I will put here brackets just for me, open and close. And I will say, is the instructor name equal, because I want to check equality, and here student. And then let's print it to see the value. I put here is name, is same name, and I print it. And if you think about it before printing the value, here, if I'm checking instructor, that will be Sally. Is Sally equal the student value, which is Hannah? So if you said false or no, then right, the value here, we should expect it to be false. So let's do that. And debug only, then the same name is false. Let's say I asked another student and her name was Sally. So the instructor name is Sally. One of the student names is Sally as well. So when I will check here, the instructor value will be, is Sally value equal Sally as well? And in that case, the result will be true. So let's print it here. And in that case, it's true. So both of them are equal. So yeah, so that's just a brief example on how you can use Boolean and what Boolean variables means in general. The benefit of Booleans will be very obvious when we work with conditional statements. So don't forget to attend the sessions or watch the videos to know more about that. Another thing before moving to the next data type, I don't know, again, like it's personal preference, but I usually try to name my Boolean variables starting with an is, so it's easier to figure out that this is a Boolean value just from the name. It's a suggestion to follow, and it's really up to you. Just make sure if you do with an is at the beginning or not to use a meaningful name. Don't go with X and Y and Z. It won't be useful for you. The next data type is the date data types. And that's very important and very interesting to learn because, again, we will be using them a lot in our code. As I said, beginning of variables. Variables are a basic concept that you'll be using in any development you do in Apex, and I believe in any other languages as well. So here are the date data types. We have 3 categories. One is the date, one is the date time, and one is the time. And from the name of the data type, you can guess what it means. Like the date here means that we care just about the date, like the day. Is it January 28th? Or is it 1st of June? Or is it 2nd of March? So it's something where will be used when we care only about the day. For example, like if I want to send a friend a birthday wishes or a card, I care about their birthday date, which is like 3rd of March. I don't really care about the time or when they were born. I care about the day, so I can send them a notification or a message or a card. Same for the deadlines. Not all the deadlines come with the time. Sometimes we say like, I want this by next Friday. So I give you a day and I don't give you the time. And same, if you are in a school or university and you have the date deadline for a deliverable. So sometimes it's just the date. And uh, from the other type name as well, you can guess, like the date time is another type of the data types, but here we care about the time. And that's important because sometimes you really, really want to know which day and what time an event will happen. For example, we have the sessions every Thursday, but we know it's happening at 7 p.m. Eastern time. So if I want to give you a notification or I'll send you like an invitation or reminder, so I will tell you that next event will be February the 1st, but at 7 p.m. Eastern time. So here I cared about what's the time, and it's not just about the date. The third option is time. And from the name, you can guess, like here is something that we don't care about the date. It just we care about when it happens in the day. For example, I have an office hour that runs every day, 7 days per week, and it runs at 12 p.m. Eastern time. So in that case, I don't really need to specify the date because it's happening every day, but it's happening at a specific time. And that's when I will care mainly about the time. Now, let's go ahead and open again our developer console and we'll work up with the date data types. We'll start with the date. And the date here, the most, if you watch the previous videos, you know that we spoke about the data types methods. So if I say here date Apex methods, it will list for me all the methods available for me to use. Like I can add days to a certain date. I can add month, year. I can get the day of the month of a certain date or the day of the year, days between two dates. So there is the date and is one of the classes and the data types will have a lot of methods. But it's very common sometimes when we define or initialize a variable of type date, we want to initialize it with today's date. And that's when we'll be using the today methods. So let's try it. I would say here date and today date value. And then I would say date and today. The today method is one of the methods you will be calling directly from the date class, not from the variable. So you do date.today. Let's print this and see. System.debug. And I print here the today value. Let's print it and see. Let's see the debug only. And here you will see it's giving me, it's the 28th of January, 2024. And it gives me zeros, like I'm not recording this midnight or anything. It's 8 p.m. Eastern, but it's showing, it doesn't care, like, and that's why it shows the values of the hour, seconds, and minutes, hours, seconds, minutes, hours, minutes, seconds, but it's all zeros because we don't care about it. It's just the date of today. I don't want to know what time is it. What if I wanted to know what time was it now? So in that case, I won't be using date. I will use date time and now value. So I want to know what time is it now. And here I will do date time and another method called now instead of today. And this is coming from the data types of the methods of the data type date time. So here we have date, you'll have date date time methods. Again, we have a lot of them. And as we said in the previous session, like it's hard to cover all of them in the session, but I encourage you to go to a couple of them, use your developer console, get used to how to read the documentation, to read the description, to know how the signature tells you what's the data type coming, and if it's expect any parameters to be passed. If it's a bracket open and close directly, that means nothing is expected. And then they give you in the documentation example, you can take a copy and try to paste it in the developer console and see, or type it yourself so you get used to the syntax and how to write it. But let's see here. So here, let me print this. I print the now value and I will execute that. So now here there is a difference here because that's showing in UTC, and that's one thing you need to be careful with. Like the date time is a bit tricky, like data type to work with because it includes time, and that will vary from a time zone to another. And usually when we store a data type or a date time, or we print it as we did, it will show by default in the UTC time zone. Let's say I want to print it in mine. So luckily, we have here another method in the DateTime class called format. And the format, it will format it in my local. So let's try it. System.debug. And here I will say now value formatted, for example. And let's try it. Now value. And I will type here dot format. So that will format the time in my locale and my time zone. So let's try it. Here, again, it's a good thing that it happened. We can see. So here it says like the error is happening in line 10 and there is unexpected bracket. So let's see. So yeah, the reason why, because here I didn't put a plus sign to concatenate the string with whatever the result coming from the format. So it didn't get how it will behave. So that was missing. And another way to make sure we have all the brackets right, any bracket that we open, it has to be closed. So if I put the cursor here, you'll find that it highlighted a green. So I have the opening and closing. And here, if I put the cursor here, it shows that the opening is here and closing it there. So I don't have extra. Like if I had an extra, see when I put my cursor here, it gave me red. That means it doesn't have a corresponding opening bracket. So let's go here and execute that. And here you'll see the UTC was giving me on the 29th at 1:13. But here, because I did the format, so it formatted the date time to my locale, it's showing that on the 28th of January and it's 8:13 p.m. And that's something you have to keep in mind. And you have to be very, very careful when working with date time because it involves time, and that will make a difference between the time zones. So you have to be very careful when dealing with it. And that's why I always like suggest if there is no need to use a date time, don't volunteer and go using date time in your object fields or in your Apex coding. Stick to the date if you don't need the time. Go for date time only if you need the date time value, and you really need it and you want to work with it. Other interesting, let me comment here. Again, I will comment multiple lines. So I do backslash star, and at the end, I close it with star backslash. So a very common method as well is if I want to say, let me put here, I want 7 days from now, 7 days from now. So I want to know the date in 7 days. And to do that, we will take the today date value, which has the date of today, and I will do add days. And I will add 7. Again, I don't memorize those, but if you go to the date methods, one of the methods here is add days. It tells you that it will return a date, and it tells you here between the brackets that it's expecting an argument or a parameter pass of type integer for the additional days, and it gives you an example too. So again, I encourage you to take some time and play with the data types methods, so you get at least to know what are the options you have. And in the future, if like you need something, it may click faster that, oh yeah, I remember the date class had a method doing what I need instead of redoing it. And always it's a good idea to revisit the documentation and check. So let's print that. That means I'm adding 7 days. So let's see here. And I will open the debug only. And 7 days from now, like now is 28th of January, and 7 days from now, it will be the 4th of February. So it's very useful because sometimes you want to get the value. And the same, like we have instead of days, add month. You can add 7 month to your date. Sometimes you want to add years, like what's the date in a year from now. So you can do that a year from now instead. And let's print it. Here you have that it will be 28th of January 2025. So that's just to give you a flavor about what are the data types or the data types and the methods. Like they can be very useful and you can do a lot of things with them. And again, here we saw the date time. We saw how we can get the value for now, what's the date and the time, and how we can format it because when we print it, it prints in UTC format. So this is UTC format. This is user time zone. And if you work as an admin with Salesforce, you know that each user has its own time zone and you can change it. So when you are trying this, I suggest just for fun, change your user time zone from one to another and come and run it so you can see how the value would be different. Now, the next option would be the time. And as we said, like the time is used for specifying a time in the day. It doesn't have a date part, it's just the time, like it's 2 p.m. or 3 p.m. And it's useful when, for example, you want to get the difference between two date time and you want to find the time difference between them. Let's see, we have here an example. Let me grab it for you. And time value. So I define here data type time. I give it a name time value. And this is the same, like here I put an initialization with today date or now date time. Here the time, there is a method called new instance where you give it the hours, minutes, and seconds. So I give it 14, 30, 00. And let's print it and see what we'll see. So let's execute. And when I execute it, it tells me that it's 14:30. That's the time. Again, it's useful when you don't need to know what time is it. And we can have later on an example for when we work with the conditional statements. We'll take this example to discuss it so I don't confuse you with the conditional statements. And we'll try to figure out if now past a certain time that, for example, tells you my office hours passed or not. So for now, just know that like you have a time, which is just the time. It doesn't have anything to do with the day or the date. This is not impacted by the user time zone because it's 2 p.m. It doesn't change, and it's not related with the day or something. So it's just an indicator. What's the time value? Here, the date time is the only one that changed with the user time zone, and we have the date, which is just the date, not no time factor with it. Next is the ID data type, and that's the final um, like primitive data type that we'll be covering. The ID is a bit, I don't know if everyone here who's listening worked with the records and created records in Salesforce or not. But if you do, you know that each record you create, let's go here. I think I have an account already in my developer org. If I go for accounts here, and I open one of the records, you'll see here in the URL, there is an ID. This is the ID type we are talking about. And if you work with Salesforce or created records before or worked as an admin, maybe you know that this ID is not something you generate. It's created for you. Once you create a record, it's just created for you. We don't put or specify this value. And it's usually a unique identifier that if, for example, later on when we learn about how we write SQL statements to retrieve data from object, if I know this ID, then I can write a single statement to get me this record details without opening like the interface or looking for or anything. The ID is a unique identifier that helps you sometimes to retrieve data and access it easily. And it's generated for you, like we don't create it. So let's see an example here. Uh, Most important thing, like if you don't understand it totally, uh, ping me questions, ask me, and just keep in mind, I don't expect you to understand it 100% now. It just, I want you to see that the ID is not something you specify. Like when we did like an integer before, and I put age, I put the age and I put here 31, for example, or 13, whatever your age is and you want to put. So here we initialize the age with value 31, and I chose what is the value. And if I print it, it will print the value that I did. But with the ID, it's not something you choose. It's generated for you. So let's try here, account and account value, and I create new account, and I will give it a name, testing, testing account 22, for example. So here, we'll touch base on that after, not in this session, but here I created a more complex variable of data type account, and I initialize it by creating a new account because it's an object of a class called account, and I give it one of its properties because on account you have name, you have different values like uh, company type, website, phone, fax, rating. So I just want to give it a name. And let's also see here, if I do copy here, insertion, the global search for testing to 22, I don't have any account now with that. And let's do an insertion. Insertion means like I'm telling Salesforce, take this record or this account object and insert it in Salesforce. Again, don't worry about this. It's a DML statement that we'll learn more about further in the future. But for now, that means when I will run this, it will create it. And if I go search for it, we'll find it. And then I want to see It's ID. Because as I said, the ID is something that you don't create. You don't initialize it with a value like we did with the age here. You cannot like, for example, I did a mistake and initialized the age with 31. I can come and say, no, my age is 15. So I used the same variable and I fixed it. The ID is a fixed data type for you. So let's create a data type here, ID, and I will create a variable code with Sally test ID, and then I will say here account value. And as I said here in name, Salesforce set another property for the account called ID for me, and I will print it. ID value, and I print the testing ID I did. Okay, and let's execute it. When I do the debug, it shows that the ID value is this ID that was created by Salesforce. Now, if I search again for the testing account 22, I find it. So the code I did simply created a record for me. Here we go. And when I open, like it's empty, I didn't set any values, but it gave me the account name. That's the only thing that I set here, the name. And let's see if I do that, can I, for example, say, oh no, I want this ID to be 1, 2, 3, 4, and give it a text value, what it will tell me. Here it says invalid ID 2223, and it says like it's not a valid ID, and it's not something that I can define, like, or I cannot go and say, let's say that this is the account ID and update the account. I cannot do that. That's not something we can do. It will first, it says here it's an invalid, but let's say I go for the accounts and get a valid ID. It's a valid ID. Like, can I change it to this ID? Here, you'll find that it didn't do anything. Like, I cannot update. Like, what it did, it's, I don't want to confuse you so much, but like this ID, if I go here, that's account 222, the 3 twos. So it's another account and it's updating this other account. And what it will be doing is just updating this other account with the same name that we have. But again, let's keep this for a future session where we talk about accounts. All I need you to know now that we have a data type called ID, the ID is auto-generated for you when you create an account. And it's not something that you define, it's created for you. You don't need to initialize it. Like I won't be creating here an ID and specify the ID here when I create an account, a new account. No, the ID is auto-generated for me. So for now, just know that, and we'll learn more when we are digging deeper. That's a bit advanced, but I just wanted for now to show you that the ID is generated for you. It's unique, and it's the record IDs we have in Salesforce. That is all the explanation I wanted to do to cover the primitive data type. I encourage you to go through these exercise and try to play with. The first one, I want you to create a salary variable to store this value in it and print it on the screen. So it's up to you to choose which data type. Also, I want another variable to store your age in it and print it on screen. Again, you have to decide which data type you'll use. Third, I want you to create and initialize a string variable with this format and play with the string methods to convert hello hola to with double O my session exclamation mark to hello to code with Sally session full stop. Try to use as many as methods. There is ones that will remove a character at the end. Another one will make all the string small or capitalize the first letter. Like, I want you to play with it and try different methods. I don't want you to go in one line and change it. We can do that. And in the next recording, like, because this is not live, you'll see that someone did it in one line. But the intention here is to play with the string methods as much as you can. Here, the fourth is to create a Boolean variable. Use one of the comparison operators, greater, less, equal, and set it to either true or false based on your condition, and print it on screen. And last one is to create a date variable using the date methods, and then show and print what's the date in 3 months from now. So it's not required. It's just for you to try to apply what we talked about. The next session, because it was live, it was like last Thursday. So I know what's going on with it. We'll be solving these exercises together, and we started the conditional statements a bit. So try to watch it, but before watching it, try to solve these exercise yourself so you can benefit more. And moving from last session, which is the fourth and the one after this, all the recordings will be live unless there is any technical issues and we missed the recording for a reason or another. So feel free to watch it as many as you want. Come with questions next session, or even send me messages on LinkedIn, Slack, if you want to leave a comment on the video and I will get back to you. Feel free to do that. I'm here to help you, and I hope you enjoyed the session, and happy coding, and I will see you on the next session then. Have a good one. Bye.